Hey, remember when I said all those things about the Mets and how they should be trading away their players over the summer and they should be sellers? They don't have any real shot of making the playoffs. I was wrong.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Whoops. Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. This episode of Locked On MLB is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 of bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Yeah. Um, I could not have been more wrong. I there was sound reasoning for me for making those statements. The main reason I was making those statements was the Mets just finished a really, really bad May. A May where they went 9-19, and on the when was it? It was on the third day of June. Met fans woke up to see their team 11 games under 500 with less than 2 months before the trade deadline. And I thought a team that's 11 games under 500 with a lot of tradable assets and a lot of teams looking to acquire players, I thought it would be really smart if the Mets say, hey, we can take advantage of that. Now, they had a fabulous June, and I thought that June was great for the Mets because they played a lot better. But in the end of June, despite everything that went well for them in June, and they were absolutely terrific in June, they were still sub 500 and on the outside looking into the postseason. And I thought, hey, sell high. And I did several episodes, including one where I was on location in Syracuse, New York. And when the trade deadline came around in July, I doubled down. Yes, the Mets had a fantastic July. There's no getting around that. But still, when Met fans woke up on the last day of July, just before the trade deadline, the Mets they were above 500, but there were many, many teams ahead of them in the wild card chase. And I thought, they just had 2 great months in a row. Are you really going to blow it? And they did. They held on to their assets. And to the other thing that has a similar that you take away the set. They held on to that as well. I'm trying not to get a explicit rating on this. They did the right thing, and they didn't listen to your pal Sully, and I was wrong. The Mets have blown away my expectations. They have blown away anything that I thought they were going to do. And now they have beaten the Brewers in 3 games. They've beaten the Philadelphia Phillies, the team that I picked to win the World Series at the beginning of the year and at the beginning of the postseason. And now they're heading to the National League Championship Series. And they look great. They look fantastic. And I have egg on my face. And their record, let's go to that moment um when they were 11 games under 500. Okay. And since then the Mets have, well, the best record in baseball. So for 2/3 of the season, they were the best team in baseball. And I was wrong. And when the Phillies got an early run today. And by the way, let the record show, I was rooting for the Phillies a little bit today, but for only one reason. I wanted to see a game 5. I have nothing against the Phillies, and I have nothing against the Mets. I like game 5s. And so when neither one of them are my team, and these two teams have been playing so great, and this has been such an exciting series, I wanted to see a game 5. So just full disclosure, I wanted to see a game 5. But as it turned out, especially with the Mets blowing this bases loaded situation, that bases loaded situation, what I did not anticipate at the beginning of this series was how horrible the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen was going to be. And Jeff Hoffman did not have it. And Carlos Estevez came in and let up a go-ahead grand slam to Francisco Lindor. Yes, Shohei Ohtani is going to win the NL MVP. If you think otherwise, I'm sorry, you're living in your own planet. But man, oh man, Lindor looks pretty damn valuable right now. I feel badly for. Do you know what I feel really bad for? I feel badly for Zach Wheeler. I wrote before the Mets rallied in game 1, why aren't they taking out Wheeler? I posted it on Twitter. Why are they taking this guy out? You got to throw away some of the game plan when it comes to the postseason. What none of us knew was how dreadful the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen was going to be in the postseason. The Phillies bullpen was supposed to be a strength. They were awful. They were absolutely god awful. By the way, the team I can't help but think of right now, I can't help but think of the Brewers as they were, what, 2 outs away from eliminating the Mets, and then the Pete Alonso home run. Remember that? Doesn't it feel like a month ago? Didn't it feel like that was going to be the great highlight for the Mets? Now that's almost an afterthought. But the Brewers must be thinking, we were that close to winning, and we had no idea the Phillies would be this vulnerable. And here they are, the team. But let's do the postmortem for the postmortem. Sorry, I'm not. It's late. For Philadelphia, no ring this year. No ring this year. And Harper's now 31. Castellanos is 32. Schwarber is 31. Trey Turner is 31. JT Realmuto is 33. Zach Wheeler's 34. Nola's 31. Now they're all younger than me, and none of them are ancient, but teams that load up on the 30 some odd year old players can go south in an awful hurry. This was the Phillies' chance to win a title. Yes, it was great fun for all Philadelphia fans when they won the pennant a couple of years ago. And it was a gut punch that they dropped 2 games at home to an 84-win Arizona Diamondbacks team last year. But losing to this Mets team after they fortified their club and looked like they were going to win big time because the bullpen collapsed, there is going to be a gigantic amount of pressure on the Phillies in 2025 to win it all because the window of opportunity is closing. If this team had won the World Series this year, for the Harpers, for the Schwarbers, for the Wheelers, for the Turners, all of their contracts would have been justified. The Phillies have only won the World Series twice, 1980 and 2008. This was going to be number 3. And for all the players on the '08 team, a lot of them stuck around for a while. There was a sense of it's okay, even if they were overpaid by the end. It's okay because they delivered. It was time for this team to deliver this year, and it didn't happen. And they lost to the Mets. This is going to be a very, very bitter offseason for the Philadelphia Phillies. But the Mets go on to live another day. And who will they play? Well, let me tell you something. My tickets for Dodger Stadium and the NLCS are not voided yet. Prize Picks. You know what Prize Picks is. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players and get a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as few as four correct picks. And Prize Picks is the best way to get on action on the sports in over 30 states, including Florida, Georgia, Texas, and right here in California. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in as little as 15 minutes. Now, Prize Picks is now going to offer you a deal where you can earn. Download the app today. Sorry. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly. Someone's screen just froze after you play your first $5 lineup. Repeat that again. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So, Prize Picks, let me tell you something. It is the best way to earn some sports money. Prize Picks, run your game and run your mouth, as I'm going to be talking a little bit about our good friends over at Booking.com. Booking.com? I'm sorry. It's more like Booking.yeah. Explore U.S. cities you've always wanted to check out, including that of your rivals. Baseball cities with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You may just find the perfect stay no matter where it is. It's time to taste the baseball's competition's stadium cuisine. Luckily, on Booking.com, you can find the stadium that's just right for you. Now, Booking.com can help you book that great place like I went to in Cooperstown, New York. It was fabulous, walking distance from the lake and to the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's all fantastic. From hotels that look over stadiums to friendly resorts for the whole family. Booking.com has so many choices. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Those were flawless live reads. Absolutely flawless. So the Dodgers went into today's game with the San Diego Padres. And as we were looking over the game. Where I work, there's a lot of Dodger fans. And as late as 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right around the time we were all letting out and sending my students home, uh, the Dodger pitcher was listed as TBD. You know, when Sandy Koufax is sitting behind home plate at a Dodger game these days, I think they're going to try to reinstate him. The Dodgers went into today without a starting pitcher. Now, stop and think about that. People talk about how unfair their payroll is and how they can just buy anything. And yet here they are with a season on the line, and they didn't have a starting pitcher. Now, the Padres went for the jugular. They had Dylan Cease, and Dylan Cease is an all-star pitcher, and they were trying to just say, all right, we got an all-star, you got nothing. And all the momentum after the win the other night, and the Padres looking to just put the clamps on the Dodgers after the 6-5 thriller last night. And the Dodgers started Ryan Brazier. Yeah, Ryan Brazier. This was Ryan Brazier's sixth major league start. He started one game for the Red Sox in the 2020 COVID year, and he started 4 games this year. And I believe each time was as an opener. So congratulations, he gets the start in a do or die game. And there was no reason for him to think he was going to go far. He only faced 4 batters. Now, I'm living here in LA County. Dave Roberts gets a lot of grief from a lot of Dodger fans because the Dodgers are in the playoffs every year. They've won the World Series only once. And a lot of people have thrown a ton of blame at Dave Roberts. And I said in the video that I did at Dodger Stadium that if they don't win the World Series this year, there's going to be some pressure on firing Dave Roberts. I don't think they should fire Dave Roberts. I don't. I'm just saying that when the expectation is World Series championship or bust, yeah, that'll lead people to do some strange things. But that being said, anyone who criticizes Dave Roberts based on what he did on the game 4 against San Diego needs to shut up, needs to just close your trap, because he was in San Diego with all the craziness and all the balls being thrown and Manny Machado this, and I got hit by a pitch that, and the San Diego winning that 6-5 game, and absolutely already in front of nearly 48,000 fans at Petco Park to put the Dodgers to rest. And that he went there without a starting pitcher using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pitchers. 8 pitchers in 9 innings. And absolutely threaded the needle perfectly throughout this game. Let's read the final pitching line for those 8 pitchers. Brazier, Banda, Kopech, Vesia, Phillips, who got the win, like that means anything in a game like this. Hudson, Trinan, Knack. 9 innings, 7 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, no runs. The Padres haven't scored since that big, huge 6-run inning in game 2. And Cease did not have it. Cease got smacked around. Honig got smacked around. And the Padres defense was not that good. The final score was 8-0. It was a blowout. And the Dodgers jumped ahead. They were up 5-0 and didn't let off the gas. And they kept throwing pitcher after pitcher after pitcher. They used 8 pitchers, and the Padres couldn't get a rally going. You got to give Dave Roberts credit. You got to give Dave Roberts credit for another thing. There's an off day on Thursday, and they're going to go back to Los Angeles. None of these pitchers, Brazier threw 19 pitches, Banda threw 19 pitches, Kopech 20, Vesia threw 30, Phillips 10, Hudson 9, Trinan 19, Knack 20. He didn't blow anyone's arm out. No one even went a second. Vesia faced the most batters with 5. And so he's got Yamamoto pitching on game 5. And he has all 8 of the pitchers I just mentioned ready to go. He didn't wear any of them out. He didn't say, all right, you're gonna have to take the brunt of this. No, he spread it out. Everyone did their job. And if Yamamoto comes into any trouble, he could bring in the law firm of Brazier, Banda, Kopech, Vesia, Phillips, Hudson, Trinan, and Knack, and try to thread the needle again. And the Padres already shot their shot with Cease. They have to have Darvish pitch very, very well. Now, Darvish did pitch very well in his first time round, but we now have a do or die game in Los Angeles. I don't think either team has momentum. Dodgers won game 1, Padres won game 2 and 3, Dodgers won game 4. There's no rhyme or reason here. But now LA looked dead. If you told me that they were going to lose the 10-2 blowout and have the emotional game 3 and go to game 4 without a starting pitcher, and that none of their pitchers were going to go 2 innings, I would have just assumed they had the doors blown off the dump and that they were going to come sulking back home. But no, they're not. Padres aren't going away. They could still win the World Series. but the Dodgers are alive. And do you know what? It's at no small credit to Dave Roberts. And some of you, I'm telling you, some of you owe him an apology. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 of bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. It's America's #1 sports book. Hey, let's review quickly the other two games that happened. Give Detroit all the credit in the world. Think about how quickly that series turned around. Cleveland bombed Detroit in game one. They were down 5 runs in the first, and Cleveland just cruised to a 7-0 win. And it was 0-0 going into the ninth. Clase had 2 outs, 2 strikes. They knew they were going to get out of this, and all they needed was one hit, 1 run in the bottom of the ninth, and they would have taken a 2-0 series lead with the Tigers not even scoring a run. And then suddenly, shockingly, Kerry Carpenter hits a home run, ties the series, and suddenly Spencer Torkelson and company and the Tigers mixing and matching like crazy. They shut out Cleveland. Cleveland hasn't scored since game one. Their offense went dead. They were this close to taking a 2-0 series lead and putting the Tigers in just happy to be here territory. And now Cleveland has to play, this afternoon for their life. And Detroit can, I don't know, clinch. Now, I'm not giving up at all on Cleveland. They need to come, they can come back and they can win. They are more than capable. If they just need their bats to erupt once and they have a shot. And their Bybee pitched very well in game one, and Detroit's going to mix and match. But here's where things get scary for Cleveland. If Cleveland wins this afternoon, they're probably going to throw Skubal. Detroit's probably going to throw Skubal. And that's going to be borderline impossible because we all saw what he did the other day. Cleveland is in trouble, and the home run against Clase is going to hang over this team, much like the polling Wheeler. Now, again, it wasn't Cleveland's fault. They did the right thing. They put Clase in the game as well they should. But things are going to get weird and interesting. By the way, the Yankees, give them credit. They won yet another one-run game. They won a one-run game in game one against Kansas City. They lost the 4-2 game the other day, and they won another game today. Again, Kansas City's starting pitch or Kansas pitching altogether has to start throwing strikes. 9 walks? 9 freaking walks. That's not good. And that wasn't necessarily what killed Kansas City, but the fact that the Yankees knew that they could take the first few pitches because they were wild, that's got to stop. And by the way, give a hand to Giancarlo Stanton, who got a lot of guff for dogging it the other day or just being slow. He singled, he doubled, he got the go-ahead home run, and he stole a freaking base. So the Yankees are on the verge of moving on to the ALCS, and they're starting Garrett Cole. Now, here's the deal. Garrett Cole looked pretty bad. Garrett Cole did not look very good in game one. They won. They won in spite of how he pitched, but they did indeed win the game. I think Garrett Cole is too talented a pitcher to have two, dogged uh, outings in the series. So I think the Yankees are in very good shape. By the way, do you know who you got to give a big hand to? You got to give a big hand to Luke Weaver. Luke Weaver has given the Yankees 3 1/3 shutout innings. He got a pair of saves along the way, but he and Clay freaking Holmes. Now he's wiggled out of some trouble there, but Luke Weaver and Clay Holmes have combined for 7 1/3 shutout innings in this series. It's not bad. That's not bad, and they helped the Yankees wiggle out of trouble in the game 1 and 3 victories for them. So, that was our last 4-game, uh, day that we have of this year, and of all the teams in the division series, the first to be eliminated was the team that I picked to win the World Series. And someone pointed out on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now. Well, I can see if I can find this post. Um, oh yeah, this is from Ren Credible at on Twitter. It says the team you seemingly questioned the most in regular season just eliminated the team you picked to win the World Series. Yeah, egg on my face. Baltimore and Philadelphia were both eliminated in their respective opening rounds with a combined playoff record of 1-5. Yep, that was my World Series pick. By the way, I'm going to just point out two happy birthdays and to two players who demonstrate why baseball and playoff baseball is the greatest of all. Happy birthday to two catchers, Gene Tennis and Francisco Cabrera. Now, they both represent everything wonderful about baseball and baseball's postseason. Gene Tennis was not the starting catcher for most of the year in 1972. Dave Duncan was, and he had a terrible playoff against the Tigers. He did wind up getting a single that drove in the winning run in the final game, but he was awful the rest of the series. And in 1972, he started as the catcher in the World Series for the A's against the Reds. And the A's were huge underdogs, partly because they lost Reggie Jackson to an injury just before the World Series began, and they didn't have a big power source. And Gene Tennis said, "Hold my beer," and hit a home run in his first at bat and his second at bat. And he wound up hitting 4 home runs in the World Series altogether and was named World Series MVP. In a World Series that has an injured superstar like Reggie Jackson and tons of stars like Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, Joe Rudy, Bert Campaneris, all these stars, Sal Bando were playing. It was Gene Tennis, most of the year the second string catcher, who went on to be the World Series MVP. And then Francisco Cabrera, who's only on the 1992 Braves playoff roster because of an injury to Greg Olson, that they needed to have a third string catcher just in case, came up as a pinch hitter in the bottom of the ninth of game 7 with the Braves down a run and the bases loaded. In any other sport, you could always pass it to your best player. You could pass it to LeBron. You could pass it to Jordan. You could hand the ball to Jerome Bettis or whoever the big star is. You can slap the puck to Gretzky or Messier or Lemieux. But in baseball, there's an order. And while the Braves had great players like Ron Gant and Dave Justice and Terry Pendleton on that team in 1991, that wasn't their turn to hit. And Francisco Cabrera came up and he got the hit that broke the heart of Pirate fans all over the place and sent the Braves to the World Series. And a few weeks later, in a speech, President George Bush mentioned Francisco Cabrera. The guy who was supposed to be heading back to the Dominican Republic was basically a minor league catcher who was only on the roster because of an injury, came up in the big spot and was mentioned by the President of the United States. That only happens in baseball. The times where you can get that obscure hero because it's their turn to hit. Who will be the next Cabrera? Who will be the next Gene Tennis? We're going to find out. But for right now, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Admitting I was wrong. Boy, oh boy, I was about the New York Mets. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.